Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. What we're going to do today is we're going to kind of wrap up this World of Exploration or New World unit. As you can tell, some of the stuff here at the top, like definitions or different terms that you guys looked up the other day, are up here in order for us to discuss them in a little bit more detail today. We're also going to add to the notebook some of this information about advantages, disadvantages, and reasons. We're going to talk about what all this means. And what we're shooting at here is we're going to review a little bit tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we're going to take what is essentially the New World or Age of Exploration quiz. It won't be too difficult, in my opinion, because a lot of the stuff that's going to be on there are things that we've only recently talked about, even within these non traditional learning days. So, again, what we're going to do today is we're going to wrap up any of the note type of information. Tomorrow, we're going to do a little bit of review questions. And then on Thursday will be this quiz. Okay, so I won't be too worried about it if you guys just look back over your notes and pay attention to what we're going to talk about today and tomorrow. Okay, so to start, let's go back over the information at the top here with these terms. Mercantilism is kind of a term that's used to describe this whole time period. And basically, what you wrote in the notebooks the other day is pretty much dead on. But mercantilism is essentially a theory that tells a country, hey, the more money we have, the more land we have, the more gold and things like silver that we can get our hands on, the more powerful we are. Now, there's a lot of other factors that go into that to make that a reality because you could have better technology or worse technology and different things like that. But mercantilism basically is saying, hey, if we want to be a strong country, we need a lot of money, we need a lot of trade, and we need to go out and get land, gold, silver, whatever we can get our hands on because that's just going to increase our wealth and power. Now, the other part to mercantilism is the import-export. If you didn't know what those terms meant, exporting is basically your goods that you're selling to other people, and imports are goods that you're bringing in that you're buying from others. So another part of mercantilism is that you should have more exports than imports. You should be selling more of your stuff. You should be exporting more of your products and importing less. I mean, that's pretty common sense, but it's basically saying in order to have more money, we need to sell more and buy less. So that's essentially another part of mercantilism. The term commerce is just basically talking about the exchange of goods, or basically what we would call today doing business. That's it. So the act of doing business and having trade partnerships, that all goes with commerce. Entrepreneur is just a fancy word for a business person. So somebody that sets up the business or somebody that's involved with the organization or they pay for different parts of the business, those are all entrepreneurs. Joint stock company is the one that's pretty unique to this time period. We still have stock today, like the stock market. We have joint companies, but we'll talk about how this goes hand in hand with this new world exploration. A joint stock company, again, is basically a business where many different people can invest in it. So what they're saying here with this is you could have a joint business, like several different people involved, and they buy stock in that company. So basically, you can start this joint stock company, and a lot of different people can throw their money in on the project, and only a select few, maybe a couple, will actually be interested in going in the boat over to the New World. Very few of them actually went from Europe to the New World, but they threw their money in it. So the idea was, okay, if you go over there, Mr. Explorer over here, if you go to the New World and you find a bunch of gold, or if you eventually make a bunch of money off of this, because we're involved in this joint stock company together, then I will get a percentage of it. So if this little explorer guy over here goes to the New World and finds a bunch of gold and brings it back to Europe, then you, being a member of the joint stock company, would get whatever percentage you were supposed to earn. Okay, obviously you can put more money into a joint stock. You could put a little less money if you wanted to, but that obviously is going to increase or decrease your percentage of whatever's coming back. Again, albeit trade from merchandise or finding gold or land or anything like that. Okay, so this pretty much wraps up all those terms. Again, if you have pretty much the same thing, or if you only made some slight changes, that's perfectly fine. Now, all this stuff down here at the bottom is definitely new information that we are going to add in some capacity. At minimum, what you see right here is what you get. But we need to add that to the notebook because that's going to be it as far as new notes are going to go. Again, I can still pull questions for this upcoming quiz. I can still pull things from these charts. So you want to pay attention and add what you need to add. Okay, so the advantages and disadvantages are basically talking about advantages of this mercantile system and disadvantages. So, what are advantages of going to the New World and starting businesses related to the New World, and what are some disadvantages of the same? Okay, so some advantages. First of all, these joint stock companies, very many of them, are developed by individual people. So it's almost like today in America where you can start your own business and the government, especially the leadership like a president or even, a governor of a state, do not really have a lot of input. If you want to start your business, you start your business. Okay, so this is very similar because you could develop your joint stock company, you could develop your business, and the king of any country in Europe would really not necessarily have any connection to it. So you're kind of your own boss, essentially. So that was a good thing. Pooling money, obviously, just like this joint stock company is talking about, you pool money together. So several different people put their funds together, kind of in the mix, and then that all gets used for the exploration, for the finding of goods, and whatever your joint stock company wants to do. So as opposed to you being the only investor, you have multiple investors that can put all their money together. The adventure is pretty common sense. Obviously, once Europeans realized that this was a completely new world to them and not just the back part of India or China, they were definitely interested in going and adventuring just for the sake of it. So, people that would go out and be part of these expeditions certainly had, adventure on the mind. Cash crops we've discussed a little bit before, but what is now North and South America was a very good area for growing different kinds of crops, and especially new crops to these Europeans, or ones that would make a lot of money. So we've already talked about things like tobacco, we've talked about things like rice and cotton, and those are obviously going to be major cash crops for a very long time, especially in what is now the United States. But that was definitely an advantage because you could go invest in growing of cash crops, things that are going to make you a lot of money, and not necessarily crops that you're going to use to eat or just for food for others. Okay, so those are all the advantages. Disadvantages are pretty straightforward. This is very costly. So, getting involved with a joint stock company and paying for ships to be built and paying for crews to man those ships and supplies for those ships and getting over to the new world and exploring and claiming land and looking for gold, all that stuff costs money. So, the cost of being involved with one of these joint stock companies or one of these expeditions was very expensive. So, it's very high cost. A slow return. Now, the slow return doesn't necessarily mean like literally it's going to take you a long time to get back on the boat, which is true, but it's actually a slow return on your investment. So if you invested in this joint stock company, you've got to think the boats have to be built, the journey has to be taken over to the new world. You have to find whatever it is you're looking for. So if you're looking for gold, it's going to take a while to find that gold. If you're looking to grow crops, you're obviously going to have to plant the crops, let them grow, and then eventually when you harvest those crops, they're going to have to be brought back to be sold in the market, and et cetera, et cetera. So being involved with the joint stock was a very slow return on your investment. It could take months or even more likely years to get your money back or to make it profitable. But you had to take the risk in order to, get something out of it. And the big disadvantage is these colonies or these joint stock companies may fail. There's a lot of reasons that they may fail. Obviously, if the ships don't even get there in the first place, some ships were lost at sea. Some ships just turned around because they felt like they weren't going to be safely able to reach the New World. And once they get to the New World, they might not have a lot of success. You've probably heard of several colonies that might have been there for a little bit and then everybody got sick, or they were attacked by native tribes, or there just wasn't gold, or there wasn't good crop farming land there. So the colonies themselves might fail, and that's obviously a huge disadvantage. Okay, so that's all the advantages and disadvantages. Now, the reasons, this is a pretty unique box, but there are two main reasons, aside from all this stuff that we've already talked about, like gaining land and gold and money. There's two big reasons in Europe at that time that other people would have wanted to come to the New World. Okay. The very first one here is kind of odd, but it's kind of a rule in Europe that if you were the firstborn son of somebody who owned land, then you would automatically inherit that land. But if you were the second son or the third son or the fourth son or whatever, you could not directly inherit your dad's property. Okay, now obviously this conversation does not include females because the women were not necessarily considered as equals. But a lot of these explorers were second or even later sons in their family, and they were interested in going to the New World to explore and look for new land because they knew over in Europe it wasn't a guarantee that they were going to get any. Okay, so a lot of these explorers were the second or third or fourth sons in their family. And since they could not directly inherit the land over in Europe, they felt like, well, what the heck? I might as well just go to the New World and try to find some land over there. So that drove a lot of explorers to go looking for new things. And a religious angle here is that in Europe, there were a lot of people who disliked the Anglicans, which was that church of King Henry VIII that kind of broke off, and they also disliked Catholics, who obviously were still a major factor in Europe at the time. So it was almost like they didn't want to be on either of those teams. They didn't want to be on the King Henry team that was going to break away from Catholicism. They also didn't want to be part of Catholicism. And they would want to go to the New World in order to have what is known now as religious freedom. Okay, they were known as the Puritans because they felt like their take on Christianity was going to be a lot more pure than both the Anglicans and the Catholics. Today, we'll know them more commonly referred to as the Pilgrims. So, the people that come to places like Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts and other colonies along the way are going to be known to us as the Pilgrims. But back then, they're known as the Puritans by themselves because, again, they thought that they were more pure than the other two divisions of Christianity. Okay, so as far as notes, this wraps it up for the unit. Okay, and I guess essentially it wraps it up for the year. What I want to see today is just all of this plotted out. So if you wrote this in your notebook, if you're following along and you're typing it in a Google Doc or anything of that nature, just go ahead and email or share that to me so that I have proof that you actually have this information. Okay, I want to have some evidence that you got through all this. And again, in the coming days, tomorrow we're going to do a little bit of review questions. And then on Thursday will be the quiz that goes along with this. Okay, as always, I hope you all are staying safe. Be well, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye bye.